Hey everyone, welcome to What's Your Process? I'm joined by Melissa Rosenthal, co-founder of Outlever today, and we look a little different. Melissa, what's going on with the mullets?
Yeah, I lost a bet with a friend, and the bet was that if I lost, I would go on a podcast with a mullet. And Dimitri, you were kind enough to host me in my mullet, and you even brought your own.
Absolutely. I mean, I gotta keep up and look good like you. But two, I was always brought up to make sure your guests feel comfortable, and it'd be awkward if I didn't, honestly.
Love it.
Thank you for joining me today. I've been really, really excited about this, mullet or no mullet. But let's jump in. What do people need to know about you?
I spent 13 years of my career in media and digital publishing, and kind of disrupting on that side. And then I went over to B2B SaaS. So I've kind of straddled like both sides in very different industries, which I think makes me kind of unique in the world in which I live in, because everyone has kind of been in SaaS forever. And I've seen a whole other side of a very interesting industry that went to the moon and then came back down to earth. And I don't know, I think a lot of those learnings have really shaped who I am and what I bring to every experience and every career move that I make. Is kind of this culmination of, the intersection between my experience in media and building news companies and media companies, and then running marketing and SaaS.
That's really cool. I love that it's kind of like, it's compounding, right? And having those different experiences gives you that different perspective. I know, like for me, because I was a talent agent, then I became a dev, then I got into SaaS. Like B2B was like late. Like I'm still obviously young. We're both young, but it feels like a late stage career move in a way. So it's been like, I know for me, it's been cool to like rely on that like previous experience to be like, okay, this is how the real world operates outside of this.
Yeah, I am. I thought I was going to be, it's so funny because you realize how insular every world is, right? Like I thought I was going to be in media forever. My entire network was in media. I was interviewing for CEO jobs in media. And I realized that like media exists in an echo chamber, like maybe even more so than SaaS, but it's really interesting to see how that world doesn't intersect at all, like, and how different it is. But yeah, it's been interesting. And my pivot to SaaS was definitely like a huge learning curve out of a, not that this industry isn't like ego driven in some capacity, but media is just all about ego. And it's a very different world. Media loves media, and SaaS loves to innovate and be disruptive and think about other things. So it's been very interesting.
That's awesome, because I know that you're going to bring the heat right now. Then we don't need to recount everything. Like people should absolutely go. One, they should follow you on LinkedIn. Two, they should absolutely look at your experience, because it's remarkable. It's jealousy inducing, truth be told. But like, knowing what you've achieved, knowing what you've accomplished, knowing the types of organizations you've worked at, it makes me really excited to ask this next question. And this is like the big one for the podcast, which is, what is one thing that you're world class at?
Yeah, I think it's funny. Imposter syndrome version of me probably wouldn't have answered this way, but I would say disruption and being on the cusp of what's happening next. And I think it's a weird thing to say that, because then you're like, oh, I can see around corners, but I kind of can. And I've done it 4 times successfully. And I think that once you've done it 4 times, you're able to say that. So yeah, I don't know. I've always been really not happy settling. I feel red flags like intensely in my body, and red flags within industries, trends, things I see happening that don't feel right or feel like they're making having a massive shift. Even when the rest of the world may not have caught on or they're not talking about it yet, I go for it. Like I lean into that hard, and whatever that is, either it's positive or it's negative, and I make a move based on that. And I think it's a kind of mother of invention. It's like, running after the things that you see that are the future, and like grasping onto those really tightly. And I've done that, 4 times in my career, even when I didn't know I was doing it when I joined BuzzFeed. Now that I think about it, it was a very calculated move. Like I was interviewing at really old school companies like Hachette Apache and Condé Nast, and like these old publishing, powerhouses. And the reality was that there was something about the way they interacted within interviews. There was something about the way they viewed the future. When I was very excitable, and I asked them like a lot of questions, and they weren't excited. They just weren't. And I was like, oh, is this what work is? I was like, why are they not like excited about the future? And it was just maybe the type of person they hired, but And then I know I interned at BuzzFeed and the culture was completely different. It was like the future is social sharing and linear distribution is going to die and we're going to pioneer that. And everyone was, working till 1 a.m., but in the best way. Everyone was super excited. And, it was the future. It felt like the future. And I was like, this is the future. Like, I was like, people are going to share content. That's how they're going to find it. And, these magazine companies are going to die out and they're going to all like, I was so in on that because I had felt it really deeply within the culture and the ecosystems of the other companies that I had just been around. I didn't, know the inner workings, but I was like, this feels dated. Like everything about this feels dated, and everything about BuzzFeed felt like the future. And that was just, I was right out of college, but like that was the gut feeling.
In terms of like that feeling of the future, and specifically like social sharing versus linear, was that something that you were thinking as you walked through the door at BuzzFeed, or is that something that BuzzFeed kind of taught you to like look for or think about?
So when I was actually thinking about where I wanted to end up as like my first job, I was like really upset about the idea of working at, these Condé Nast Hachette companies. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I sort of started thinking about what I spent my day to day on when I wasn't like in school, and it was on BuzzFeed. And I was actually just as a user competing with the editorial staff to post content that could go the most viral. Like they had a leaderboard, and I would spend like literally 12 hours a day just like obsessing over creating content that would go more viral than their own editorial team. And I was like, this is what I believe in. This is what I'm spending my time doing. I'm obviously investing like time and effort and capital into doing this. Like, why would I not want to work there? Yeah, I mean, it was like, okay, this is the future. I'm spending time on it. I'm able to see where, like, how viral my post is going and where and why it's being shared. I'm like, this is how I'm consuming content. And MySpace was like, people were sharing things on MySpace, but they were sharing them in links and comments. And I'm like, there's got to be something that, I didn't have the exact answer of what was going to happen, but I was like, oh, I'm spending time on social sites, and that's where I'm finding content, like Stumble Upon and Reddit. And I'm like, okay, there's something here. And then I think, when I took the BuzzFeed role, it was like, well, yeah, this is the answer.
I'm really hoping they just like made you an offer and didn't make you interview and go through the whole process.
Oh, I was an intern there. So I was an intern for when the company was like 8 people, and we were in an office in Chinatown, and there were cockroaches in the coffee pot. And like, it was just wild. And then 6 months later, we moved to like our first office in Soho, and it was like much nicer. And then I took the job full time, and I was the 10th employee. And yeah, and then it was like, obviously from there on, things went really, really well for us. But it wasn't really an interview because I was beating out their editorial staff at making things go viral. So they're like, yeah, this is the person we definitely want. And then, company grew really fast, and I was able to rise really quickly. And I raised my hand for everything because I was like super gung ho on the vision and the future and where I thought the company would end up. And it worked out really well.
That's fantastic. You sharing that story about the Chinatown office and the experience with like Condé Nast and Hachette and all that. Like one of my first experiences out of college was I was interning at Spike TV, and
Okay.
it wasn't like 1515 in Times Square. It was like this office right by Columbus Circle, and I would walk past the Condé Nast building every single day and be like, this place is just like outrageous and beautiful. And you think about what it takes to get to that kind of like place, and then what essentially you're trying to hold on to versus like when you're in that Chinatown office with the cockroaches, where you're trying to go and what you're striving for, and like that energy shift. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, small little story. When Hearst actually ended up investing a significant amount in BuzzFeed, and they have a crazy office in Columbus Circle. It's like gorgeous and like unbelievable. And during Hurricane Sandy, we were displaced from our Soho office for like 2 weeks, and our bosses, like, they wanted everyone in the office. So they're like, oh, Hearst is going to host us. So we all went to the Hearst office, and we were just like, get us out of here. This is not like, we're like, this feels horrible. And it's like, the nicest office you've ever seen. And it's like, oh, so really the culture clash is like pretty funny.
Yeah, there's legacy versus the disruptors right there.
Yeah.
It's just this perfect example. And you said you've been on the cusp of what's next. You've disrupted now at 4 different companies. Like, how? This feels like a silly question, right? Because like I'm trying to jump into process, but like, how does that happen? How do you get started? Like, at what point are you sitting there thinking like, this isn't working and we need to do something different?
I think it's both like within me and then it's within the industry. Like I think there's a couple different things, right? Like sometimes I won't say the name of the company, but right before I went out on my own, I took a CMO role at like a mental health and wellness company. And once I got inside the company and I realized like the financials and certain things and the marketing, I'm going real deep here. But I was like, oh, this isn't like A, for me, and B, like this isn't a realistic like business operation. Like this isn't going to work. And I was like, I need to be fully in control of my destiny in what I'm doing next. And I left after 6 months. And like, I would never leave a job after 6 months. I've been in roles for 3, 4, 6 years. Like I'm in it, when I'm in it. And I was like, I have to go. Like I have to go. And it was like a very harsh exit, but it was, it's sort of this like gut mental feeling where it almost is like physically overwhelms me, where I'm like, I have to make a change. It's been different at different places. That was just like, I don't think this is going to work as an organization, and like me, I can't work here. This isn't me. Leaving ClickUp was more just like, I needed to do something else. Like I had done that for such a long time, and it was a great company and we'd done so many great things, and I'd set out to do what I accomplished there. And when you feel like that, there's also sort of like a mental ending point for yourself, and you're like, I need to be on to what's next. Like I believe in this. This is like the future of collaboration and workplace productivity. I 100% believe that, but it's not my future. And I think, whatever was pushing me to like found this company was kind of that piece of it. BuzzFeed, I saw red flags about like where the digital publishing industry was headed, and no one really wanted to like acknowledge those red flags, but they were pretty prominent. And Facebook was starting to cut off our traffic, and we were seeing declines, and just like small things that no one really wanted to talk about. But again, media protects itself till the end. And I was just like, this isn't going to work. And I went to go start Cheddar, and Cheddar was like certainly like the idea of Cheddar was like the future of what I believed live streaming to be, which it ended up being 100% correct. Like people cut the cord, like everyone cut the cord. And Cheddar was like at the forefront of that in terms of content and publishing. But the reality was like Cheddar was tough because we couldn't get out of the advertising business. We had a model that we went into the business that we believed would work, which was fractional, like subscription-based revenue based on the streaming services that we would get on, which was, hey, you guys are starting new companies. You need content. We have a much cheaper model that we can operate on, and you don't have to pay us the 30 cents per subscriber that you pay, ESPN, right? We were like, we'll take 5 cents per subscriber. And they were like, no. They're like, you give us your content for free. And that was fine. Like at the beginning of that, it was like just a reality check for me. I was like, okay, I see where we are with this. Fine. We can certainly make this successful. And we did. We had a great exit. But the reality was that it wasn't real. Like advertising revenue is not real or sustainable or just like a business model that I want to be a part of. So when we realized that we couldn't get the subscription revenue, I just kind of like, even immediately, like I was like, I'm in it. I'm like so in this company. I was like the second person there, growing and building it. But it was like, this isn't where I'm going to be long term. And then after that, I was like, I need to move to tech.
It all makes sense. And right, like sometimes being the early adopter isn't the best thing. It can be, it cannot be, depending on the situation, depending on lots of things. But like, what's interesting is like and this is the whole thesis here, right? Like you're seeing what's coming. You understand the marketplace that you're currently in. You understand the environment, what's going on, and you see what's coming next. Like it's cool because like there's clearly some innate feeling that you have in terms of just like you're absorbing what's going on around you and you see what's next. For those of us that maybe don't have that, like, is there a way you would approach looking around or seeing what's coming around the corner?
I mean, I think there's a lot of obvious things that are happening right now that people like kind of don't want to talk about, right? There's AI, of course, and disruption and what jobs are going to be replaced and how things are going to be consolidated. And there's like two schools of thought on what that will be, but it'll certainly, I mean, it's already disruptive. And like, it's like when you see companies laying off 5,000 people a day, like, don't you think that like something's happening here and it's a much bigger shift? And to me, that was like, oh God, like, I don't want to be on the wave of that where I'm an employee at a company that's just going to like, they don't need me anymore. And I think that will be the reality for a lot of people, even if they're seasoned and really smart and really good at what they do. I think a lot of people will be replaced. So there's that. And then I think there's like, for me, there was not a lot of innovation in marketing. Like I felt like no one had done anything new and all these channels were becoming less efficient and SEO is just like all over the place and there's just no moat like there was, before. Like I think brand is certainly a great moat. And obviously there's still a debate about investing in brand, which is wild. It's like wild that is still a conversation. But I think that there's not really anything that I've seen innovative on the marketing side in such a long time. And I was like, well, I have this idea, and me and my co-founder, like he's my husband also, which is nice. So he's followed me throughout my entire career, and he's like, we've been talking about this thing forever, and this is the time to go into market with it because look what's happening. You're telling me exactly what's happening on marketing side, and like this is such a great opportunity to do this. So it's kind of like for me, I guess these two like things that were like, oh my God moments where like AI is just going to like take a lot of our jobs. Like I really do believe that. And I don't know if it's controversial at this point, but I think it is. So I'm like, I have to be out on my own. I have to be completely in control of my next career move and my destiny here. I don't like not having control. And I believe like I've done enough to like feel that I can helm something myself and have full confidence in doing that. And then the second piece was just the market was ripe for this. Like there's not a lot of innovation in marketing. And I think what we're doing is maybe the most innovative thing I've seen in a long time. So I'm excited about it. I like to be disruptive and I like to get on calls where people are like, holy shit, this is a wild thing that you built.
That's got to be the most rewarding feeling in the world, hearing that, right? Because again, like you can have the vision, you can see it in your mind's eye, right? But at the same time, if other people don't, then you're like, shit, like what am I doing?
I got on a call and someone was like, "Well, this is genius." I'm like, "Oh, really? Like you like it too?" I'm like, "I like it too." Like it's hard because before we got into market, it was like, "Oh, are we going into market too early?" All this stuff, and the reality is like you just have to go into market and hear what people are saying and get the feedback, and that motivates you to keep going, and it encourages and inspires you and gives you everything that you need to like keep building. And we've built a lot of like our next wave of products that we're rolling out are all from feedback in market. Obviously people say this all the time, but it's so true. You get to hear a lot when you're out the door. So it's been great doing that.
That was going to be my next question. I think you just kind of led into it, or maybe you even answered it already. But you have this feeling, you have this idea, you have this vision. Now you have to get to work. Like it's cool to have the vision, but if you don't execute, you don't get that feedback. You don't get those reps. You don't get those additional cycles to kind of iterate and innovate on top of that. Like, how do you get started from that standpoint?
The truth is, like, it depends on what your product is or what you're doing. Like, if you're going out on your own, like, I think it's not easier. I don't want to say it's easier, but I would say that there are like fundamental things that you can do yourself to like create playbooks. Like if I wanted to start creating courses or playbooks, I'm sure I could dig in and do that by myself. In our case, like we have a very, very technical product where we've like self-funded a product that people are raising 50 million to build like a fraction of. So it's like highly, highly technical. And what it is insanely complex. And if I didn't have an amazing technical co-founder, I would not be able to do this. And yeah, that's period. Like I couldn't have built this by myself. Like I'm really good on the growth side, the editorial side, I have a very strong perspective, but the technical part of this product is so deeply complex that I couldn't have done that myself, which, I place and time in person, and like my co-founder taught himself to code and he taught himself to be technical. He was never a technical person. He owned a luxury leather jacket, a plus size leather jacket company in New York. So he taught himself to sew, and he always was very, very good at understanding how to build things and then take them apart and dissect every little instance of what works and what doesn't. And he just spent the past like year and a half embedding himself in sort of the technical community and learning no code and all these tools and everything that he needed to do and just literally like immersing himself. And now he's honestly more technical than some people that I speak to on the phone every day where their job is to be incredibly technical. So very lucky with that. But yeah, I think it's just like you do have to make a move and do something. I mean, he's also not in the go-to-market space. So I had a very, very clear vision for how we roll this out, what we do, who we go after, who our ICP is, what our marketing looks like, how we like bifurcate like our editorial versus our marketing. There's two motions that we do. And yeah, I think those two, skill sets really complement each other. So I'd say going out on your own is just like, put some stuff out there, do some things. We met on LinkedIn, right? But like LinkedIn, I've been posting on LinkedIn every day for 7 years, maybe 8. And that's just something that's compounded over time. And it's given me a lot of feedback. It's given me a lot of just like confidence in what I'm doing. And it's a real time, just like kind of like megaphone. That's really, really helpful. And I would say that a lot of my like confidence and good things that have come in my life have come from posting on LinkedIn, as crazy as that sounds. So I think it's just kind of like people ask me, like I talk to people all the time. They're like, how do I start? What do I do? And I'm like, just start building a personal brand. I'm like, that will never hurt you. And whatever direction you decide to take that in, that's, your decision, but this is never going to be something that doesn't compound for you in a good way. So I always just like implore people to just like do what they can do, right? Like either start a podcast or start talking to people or send out notes or explore what's going on in the industry and, try to figure out where the gaps are or, use your skill set and what makes you uniquely dangerous and market and go out the door with it and brand it well. There's a lot you can do, as an individual, as a companies now, like there's so much opportunity. I think when you ever see a big shift, there's always an opportunity. Our big shift is we're kind of betting on, although our product is like, again, like technical and a lot of like interesting AI features within it, it's still a bet on humans and it's still actually a bet on relationships. So there's this sort of like intersection that I really believe in, which is using technology to fuel and enhance and ride the wave of whatever's happening at that moment, but still take a contrarian view to whatever's happening. And if you can mix the contrarian view with the riding the wave of technology, you somehow end up winning. And that's really what we're betting on. Like we're betting on relationships being something that people really value, but we're fueling everything about our model and our product with like deep technical.
That's fantastic. I mean, and especially going back to what you were saying about AI, right? Like with AI potentially replacing roles, people, skill sets, whatever it might be, the reality is it's not going to do as good a job as humans in a lot of things. And then things that a machine can do, it probably should have already been doing is the reality. So like the human element is always what's going to be at the core of it and what's always going to drive innovation, what's going to drive things forward. And like to your point, that comes back to relationships and like, it's interesting hearing, the way you talk about the dynamic with your husband and your co-founder. It resonates very strongly with me because I'm also like a career changer and became a dev and used that to pivot in a lot of ways. And I've always been a big believer in career changers because I think like, and this goes back to even like the point at the start about like, lifers and in B2B and SaaS and that like, if you're motivated enough to change something, to just literally say, I'm done selling leather jackets now. I'm going to go and learn how to code, learn how to do no code, become technical. Like you're clearly going to be driven in a very different kind of way than someone who's just done it over and over, right? This point on like big shifts having opportunities, this point on like, the technology plus the contrarian viewpoint. I really like that because no matter what, it's always that human motivation that's driving it, that ties it all together. And that's like, that human behavior, that psychology is really it, right? Where like humanity hasn't changed from the cavemen days to the Colosseum to whenever, like we had the same motivations. It was about survival. It was about togetherness. It was about like, figuring out how to provide for the next generation, whatever it might have been. And like, we're still doing that, except now we're doing it with AI.
And I think once you realize that, like everything is very cyclical, right? And like it all still like at its root is like very based on like who we are as humans. I think you can always kind of count on that happening. Like, again, we're still in like, even though like, it's so funny. It's like the way that we, in 2020 with like software, right? Just B2B SaaS in general, the hyper growth at all costs. Everyone is a tool that can raise and be valued at $10 billion with no revenue. Great. Right. And like, we're doing that again. And like, no one wants to talk about it because they're like, AI is the future. But I believe AI embedded within organizations and products to make people faster and more efficient at their jobs is the future of where AI is, not like one weird siloed, AIB at DR SDR thing. Like, I don't really believe in that at all. But like, I believe in the AI that ClickUp is building to enhance their product and their users' productivity. When I'm looking at like who's raising and how much they're raising and what they're doing, I'm like, this doesn't fit into the narrative of like what's going to happen again. And I think we're just going to see the cycle that we saw with the software bloat in, another 3 years where it's the same thing. And it's like the consolidation and the bundling of kind of all-in-one tools that allow you to be more productive, where the software and the AI enhances your productivity and your efficiency is where it's at.
That's interesting. I low-key disagree with you, actually, because
Ooh.
this actually touches on the media side of it as well, where it's like, like if we think about cable, right? It got too expensive. There's too much. I don't know what's going on. We're moving into streaming. Well, now I have 800 streaming.
800 streaming. I was talking about this the other day, but that's what I'm saying. It's going to happen again with AI. Well, I looked at my streaming bill the other day and I'm like, wait, I pay now triple the amount I paid for cable, but I have a choice.
Yeah, exactly. But you never know what to watch because there's too many options. And like, I don't know. I guess I'm somewhere in between maybe is the reality. But like when I think about what's going on with like a lot of these like all-in-ones, I think they've become extremely mediocre at a lot of things.
Ooh,
like I don't think there's any all-in-one provider that stands out to me that's just like best in class at all of the things that they do.
Got it.
And so I think we're in this era of tech now where those like the streaming services, like the point solutions have become world class at that one thing they do, which I guess, podcast, whatever. I love that. But I think like the integration game is what becomes most important, and the connectivity and like how you bridge those gaps to create your own, like Melissa's all in one, Dimitri's all in one. Like, I think that's what's going to be interesting. And that's where I want to see AI really come in and plug in and connect the dots, because I'm done paying all of this money for these like super bloated all in one solutions that are just half-assed and mediocre. I want world-class, but I don't want 50 logins. It's like the same thing. Like I feel like I'm reliving like 2015 all over.
And that's totally fair. I think there's two elements of that. One, it's so interesting because even with all these solutions, like our tech, we couldn't find anything off the shelf to build. So we now we had to build everything custom for us because there's just nothing that operates the way that we want to. And to your point, like integrations and APIs make that all possible. So it really is like I want to have the best in class thing, but it's really like the integrations that make that possible. To the other point, I think that's interesting because it's like, is there an element of like, once you have that all in one, you sort of lose focus on certain areas and then they just become less best in class. And there's an element of like laziness where you're really good at that one thing and you bundled everything together, but everything else suffers at the expense of the fact that you can't focus on all these different things. So then people go elsewhere. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely, probably a real thing. I think it's, I know I keep bringing up ClickUp, but it is like, ClickUp replaces like 1,000 tools that I used to have. Like I don't need Miro for whiteboards, and I don't need X, and I don't need Y, and I still use Slack. I don't use ClickUp Chat, but I don't need, like, I have my own, marketing CRM in there that I don't need. Like we have to build a new CRM for another part of our product, but it does like replace a lot of things that I needed that aren't like, that are way too complex and overly complex. Right. And I think that like that works, right? I don't want to use HubSpot for my CRM right now. Like I don't need to. And it's like, it's still like way too much and too expensive for what my needs are.
Yeah, I mean, like the stage is probably really, really important there. And like, I don't know, I've seen it firsthand where it's just a chase for whatever the new shiny thing is. And yeah, everything else does get left behind, or there's one person who's just like doing bug fixes and like making sure it's not broken, as opposed to like modernizing it and keeping that part of the product best in class. So like there's something to be said about like, yeah, right now, today at this stage, I need certain things, you need certain things. And as the companies grow and get big, right? Knock on wood, that we kind of outgrow them and get what we need or build what we need. But I don't know. This is the creative with, the creative beef with AI to a certain extent, where it's just like we are moving into this era of mediocrity in a lot of places. And I think software is number one, right? Like I'm not going to talk about copy or design or any of that stuff, because like we all know that's been beaten to death. But I think like software is getting there too. And so I don't know. I want to see more bespoke in the right kind of ways. And I think that's ultimately why, and this is where like your POV, your opinions on the company that you're trying to build, the software you're trying to build is really important. And the humanity is driving it, because you're building the software that you think your customers not even think anymore, because now you have feedback that your customers need. And that's really cool.
Also, side note, I think like pricing has become really predatory in like crazy ways, because there's nowhere else for these companies to go. So they just like the cost per seat, per like the way that they upcharge you, the weird billing. I'm like, oh my God, this is like really insane. And it just feels like they're trapped in a way, which I think just leads to ultimately downfall of a lot of these businesses. But right now I'm just like in the seat of the purchasing power of them. And I'm like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Let's just build it. Cause like I can't deal with spending this. And then, obviously create a backlog, but
what you're saying makes total sense. I love it. And I love that you're disrupting this industry. The question that I have next for you then, because like, okay, you're looking around, you have the gut feeling, you go out and do what you're capable of doing in terms of like building a product and getting feedback, right?
Yep.
The classic thing about disruption is that someone's looking to disrupt you, right?
Maybe. I don't know. I think that I don't believe in moats really, because I think that they're just like, there's a moat until you don't have one. But I will say that I think my moat is my experience. Like, I don't know if there's anyone that can bridge the gap between my B2B SaaS experience and my media experience quite like I can. Therefore, the way that I'm thinking about the product and what we're doing is very different. And then the tech we've built to actually like productize the way I think is what backs the entire thing. So I don't know if there's like, we're not trying to take existing market share out of any other company. Like we're not stealing it. We are stealing budgets, but the budgets are being cut from every other part of marketing. Like we're going to cut the demand gen budget. It's going to go here, the comms budget. We're going to do this. They're figuring out how to fund this because it's not a clear cut. It actually like services a lot of different functions within marketing. But there's not like, we're definitely educating the market on like what this motion and what this product looks like. And I just don't know if anyone could come in and like do it as well as we're doing it. And like the catch up that they would have to play on the technical side of it, like it's a brain. It's like a functioning brain. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there'll be people that'll come out there that'll like try to do the similar things, but I think we're going to be so far ahead in where our thought process is and how we're thinking about things, and hopefully have like industry dominance. I know it's early, but like we have a huge M&A plan. The goal is to get to 10 million ARR bootstrapped this year, maybe if we can, and then really decide what we want to do. Like whether that's like, acquisitions, which I think strategic acquisitions will play like a huge role in like what will eventually make this company successful, really successful. And some other products that we want to launch that are much more like, just self-serve, like lower cost. I just don't know. Like, I think it's the way that I'm thinking about this that like can't be replicated, which is again, the human part of it that maybe at the end of the day isn't the thing that you can really, really replicate.
This version of like Melissa's brain in product form is really unique and really special in that like, no one's going to disrupt your brain. Your brain is just going to continue to see what's going on and adjust and tweak and collect feedback and iterate and innovate. I've never heard anyone put it that way. And I think that's really cool.
That's the best way to describe it because it doesn't exist outside of what we're doing. And it probably wouldn't have existed, like I don't like if we didn't do this, I don't know if this like in 3 years someone would do this. Maybe like I don't think so. Which also like gives me the confidence that like we're thinking about things and it's working in the right way, and no one else is really like coming up behind us to disrupt this because it doesn't like. It's also like a lot of like thought process and like really human thinking on sort of what drives like how we think about our motion, how it works, how we organize things, how we track the data back, how we present that. Like there's just not, it would be tough to like replicate it the way that we're doing it.
That's great. And doesn't sound like anyone's gonna. So that's...
I don't know. Maybe they will. And I'm like, I'll come back to this interview and I'll be like, oh my God, I was so wrong.
No, it's just like, because again, like, people can come up with a similar product, but it won't be the same product. It can't be the same product. If
someone were to come up with this idea, like this exact idea, I don't know if they'd be able to execute on it. I just don't. So I don't know. That gives me some confidence. I mean, that definitely helps you sleep well at night when like everything else is like breaking around you at times. And, you have a great day and then you have a bad day and you have a great day and you have a bad day. But like the one thing that I feel good about is like, we're not going to be competing in market against 10 other companies. And what we want to own and, like take control of is sort of ripe for the picking, which is also very exciting. So there's a lot of opportunity that I see. And I guess that's like seeing around corners. I'm like, I see over there. Like, it's like every place the light shines is, your kingdom. And I'm like, okay, I see the kingdom. We just got to get to be able to acquire the kingdom.
That's awesome. So young Simba over here, you got the main for it too. That's fantastic. I'm really excited for you, and I'm really excited for Outlever because I haven't seen anyone doing this, and Again, like I think you touched on it earlier a bit in terms of like thinking about even where what you were saying about LinkedIn and personal brand. Like there's a big part of this where it's people, yes, they need a solution, but it's also people wanting to work with you. And that took time. And like, that's you sharing your thoughts, your opinions, your POV, and getting people to buy in.
Yeah, 100%. Like our first 10 customers were entirely my network inbound that were excited that I launched something. All of our customers, with maybe the exception of like a couple of intros, have also all been inbound. So like, that's a lot of revenue just driven from my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Like it's real, and it's not marketing dollars going out the door. It's like actual relationships that I've built where people are excited based on my content. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, very important.
I love it. Any kind of final thoughts on disruption and how to bring it to life?
No, I think it's like try to find the things that irk you or get you excited and write those things down constantly and look at them and create a Venn diagram of what those are on either side of the things that excite you and terrify you, and write some words down in the middle of the things that like are the middle ground of where you see things headed, and maybe do that a couple times over the course of several months or a year and see where you net out and see what that actually like gives you. It might give you a very interesting look into what your unique viewpoint is into the future and might actually help you figure out what's the next move for you. But my brain is constantly doing that, like just on autopilot. And it's not something that I picked up or I learned. It just started happening. But I believe in muscle memory, and I believe that like it becomes a muscle. Just the way that I like even operate my LinkedIn now. I have an idea and I write the headline down in a note, and then I'll come back to it maybe a week or later when it just like the inspiration strikes me. And I think the muscle memory is if you're constantly writing those Venn diagrams and reminding yourself of what's terrifying you or exciting you, and you then start to encounter that more often in the wild, the more driven you're going to be and the more you're going to be able to see the future because you're already like thinking about that subconsciously. So I think everything is about muscle memory and compounding growth and compounding efforts. And if you optimize for that in every single thing that you do every day, you'll be successful.
I mean, those are words to live by right there.
I hope so.
So what's next? Where can we see you disrupting in action?
I think it'll happen where everyone sees it, but they won't know they're seeing it until it's too late. So I'll be disrupting on LinkedIn and I'll talk about the things that we're doing. But I think what's going to happen is all of a sudden it's just going to be, oh, wait, where did this came out of nowhere? And you can't ignore it and it's all over. And there's nothing, you see all of it all over and you don't understand what's happening, but it's us. That's my hope.
That sounded ominous as hell. I'm just going to put it out there.
It's not like a plague. It's just, something that you're going to start seeing in the wild that you're like overnight this happened. And the reality is nothing happens overnight. Yep. Things just start working in emotion. Same thing with BuzzFeed. Like, everyone thinks we became a household name overnight. Like it's like, wow, you guys blew up in like a week. And I'm like, no, that was like 2 years of really hard work of doing things every day, of hundreds and thousands of editorial articles. And, like no one sees the stuff that's happening. It just happens. And I think that's sort of what's going to happen with us.
That's really exciting. I'm pulling for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for doing this. Mullets are going to have to come off at some point, but I'm glad we did this.
I'll keep it on for the whole day, but just to keep living this moment.
I'm just gonna put it out there. That's a choice. I'm gonna I'm gonna hit stop, and this thing is gonna come off because like I'm just so. I said this to you earlier. Like I'm just not used to this back here. Like it's given me some considerations of like maybe one day. It
looks pretty good, honestly. If you wanted to rock that, I think if that was like a life decision, I would stand by it. I think it looks good.
I took it out of the bag and I was like, this thing is not bad. I didn't know what to expect. And I put it on. I was like, well, I've truly probably had worse looks at this point.
Yeah. We have a thing here called Mustache Bash in March. And, I think I'm just going to parlay this into that. So it'll have another life in like a month or two.
That's perfect. Now you're getting multiple uses out of it. This bet is just paying off for you.
I know, it really is. Best bet I made. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was an awesome conversation. I always love when it's very natural and flowing, and you were a great host. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's very kind. Thank you for being here, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See you later.